Dzień dobry Państwu. Witam wszystkich zgromadzonych. Nie widzę wprawdzie Państwa i nie wiem, ile Państwa jest, ale mam nadzieję, że wszystkim widzę, że jeszcze osoby chyba dołączają. Od teraz widzę, ile jest osób, więc będziemy zaczynać powoli od wstępu. Witam w trzecim dniu Book Forum, wirtualnej konferencji branży księgarskiej. Organizatorem jest Legimi i firma Literacka. Mamy jeszcze chwilę czasu i żeby więcej osób zdołało dołączyć, to ja w międzyczasie wymienię naszych partnerów i patronów medialnych, którymi są w tym roku Polska Izba Książki, Lubimy Czytać, Biblioteka Analiz, Polski Związek Bibliotek, Instytut Książki, Fundacja Powszechnego Czytania, Lustro Biblioteki i EBIB, Elektroniczna Biblioteka. Serdecznie dziękuję wszystkim, którzy przyczynili się do tego, przede wszystkim do tego, aby Państwo się dowiedzieli o tych wydarzeniach, ale także partnerom, którzy włączyli się w organizację konferencji. Mowa dotyczy Book Day, tego czyta kampania, jak wpływa na rynek książki i na czytelnictwo. Spotkanie poprowadzi Marynia Deskur, szefowa Fundacji Powszechnego Czytania. Serdecznie witam Panią. Witam także naszych gości z Wielkiej Brytanii. Jest z nami Cassie Chadderton. Jest to szefowa, prezeska Fundacji kampanii World Book Day, a także Sarah Bates, dyrektorka wydawnicza, dyrektorka do spraw strategii wydawniczej Farshore, oddział HarperCollins z Wielkiej Brytanii. Dziękuję. Thank you. Spotkanie będzie tłumaczone. Mogą Państwo sobie włączyć na dole ekranu, zobaczą Państwo taki globus. Po kliknięciu jest wybór języka. Będzie tłumaczone zasymultanicznie, tak? Czyli nie będzie tych przerw, więc proszę sobie wybrać tę opcję. Mogą Państwo zadawać pytania na czacie. Jeżeli też będą jakieś problemy tutaj z wyborem tej opcji, też proszę pisać na czacie. Będziemy próbowali tu Państwu pomóc w tej kwestii technicznej. W takim razie oddaję już głos Pani Marii. Jeszcze raz dziękuję Państwu za udział.
Dzień dobry, to ja tylko dodam, że tłumaczą dla nas ta Ida Meredith i Agnieszka Chrościcka. Bardzo dziękujemy i życzymy powodzenia. To jest zawsze strasznie trudne zadanie. So I will switch to English. The idea of this conversation is to present the amazing World Book Day campaign and initiative that is actually already, I think, 25 years old from the UK. And I'm very, very grateful to Cassie and Sarah who are with us. And we agreed the following agenda for this hour. Both Cassie and Sarah have short presentations, each one from a bit different perspective. Obviously, Cassie's presentation is from the perspective of the organizer. And Sarah's presentation is a publisher's, let's say, standpoint on and vision and let's say input and output of the campaign. So I will first ask Cassie and Sarah to present the data and the ideas around World Book Day, and then we'll have hopefully 20-25 minutes to talk further, also to answer any questions you might have, or questions that I have, depending on whether we have questions on the chat. Please ask anything you like. And I think without much further comments, I will leave the space to Cassie. I think you have to share your screen if it's doable.
Yeah. Thank you, Maria. Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm going to share a presentation. If you could just confirm that you can see it, that would be great.
Yes.
Great.
I can see it.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. This is.
Thank you. So I'll take us through it. It won't be very long, but just to give a quick overview of World Book Day and how it works in the UK. World Book Day is a charity. So as a charity, we have a mission to do something for the public benefit. And what World Book Day exists to do is to promote reading for pleasure, to encourage children to read, and as part of that, to give them the opportunity to have a book of their own. And the reason we do this, and we express it as a vision, is because reading for pleasure really can improve life chances. And World Book Day's vision is that more children from all backgrounds, particularly those from disadvantaged backgrounds, are having reading for pleasure in their lives and are benefiting from the improved life chances that this brings them. So it's now slowed down and won't let me share the second slide. There we go. Here. So we say that World Book Day is changing lives through a love of books and reading. And we do this primarily through the annual event. So every year, the first Thursday in March every year, we hold an enormous media exercise that involves partners across the media and across the book selling and publishing industry. What characterizes World Book Day is that it is fun. It's a celebration. It's full of joy, because that's how we are intending to get children and families involved. And as part of that, then, to raise awareness of the difference that reading can make to their lives. We also have some year-round activities to make sure that children and families have got somewhere to go to. When they're interested in reading, they can come to World Book Day for some follow-on activities to support their reading journey. And we know that World Book Day really does make a difference. So reading for pleasure is at its lowest level since 2005. And we're also operating in a context where social and educational inequalities have deepened. So we're proud that in that context, World Book Day still is a very unique and huge presence in children's lives. So having nearly 97% of children know about World Book Day is really important and vital to us. 2 in 3 children and young people taking part in a World Book Day event, again, is enormous reach. But then even more importantly, 55% of children who are asked say that they are reading more books as a result of World Book Day. We also have some other measures that show that World Book Day has an impact. Children talk more with friends and family about reading. They're more likely to buy books. They're more likely to go to the library. So World Book Day does have an impact on children's reading behaviours and lives. Every year, we distribute around 50 million of the £1 tokens to children. So these are paper tokens that are delivered to children in schools, and children can then swap that token for a £1 book. And the £1 books are created, published, and distributed by publishers through retailers, but we can talk a little bit more about that in a second. What's really important for us is that we know that those books really get through to the children who want to read them and who don't have books at home. So 1 in 5 pupils who received free school meals, which is an indicator of very low income or poverty, said that the book they bought with their £1 token, because of course it's free, is the first book they've had of their own, which is obviously very significant. So the way we work is with an evidence base, because it's all very well having a fun, amazing celebration, but we need to know that what we do is making a real difference. So we've looked at the evidence base, and we know that there are in fact 6 reading for pleasure behaviours. So this is World Book Day's unique framework for everything that we do and everything that we encourage our partners to do, to specifically encourage reading for pleasure, not literacy. This is about reading enjoyment. Comes hand in hand with literacy. Of course, you cannot have literacy, can't have reading for pleasure without a child being literate, but pleasure and exploration and a lifelong journey of reading is what we're all about. And these are the 6 things that will make a real difference to making sure that happens. Children must have access to books, ideally at home, but also at school and also in libraries. It's great that children can be read to regularly, so with a family member or at school, or ideally both. But having that experience of being read to helps a child understand the pleasures of reading beyond their own skills base. It's really vital that children have got a choice of books to read and that they're making that choice for themselves. So sometimes in the UK, we experience children being put off reading because they're given books to read at school that they must read and not given a choice to read more freely. So that having a choice is vital. Having help. So once you're interested in reading, having some trusted help to find a book that's exciting for you is also really important. Having time to read, you know, children's busy lives, particularly in chaotic low-income households, finding that time to read is really special and important. And above all, let's make reading fun. So take it away from the chore of reading. Let's make it something that's enjoyable and about your own experience. It's a hobby. So the way we work is, as I said, throughout the publishing and bookselling ecology. So we call it an ecology because no one of these things works in and of itself by itself. Booksellers work hand in hand with publishers. Libraries are vital and work with literacy charities and schools and educators. The fact that we have a really broad media campaign and we work with brands that Children and Family recognize is also really important. So it's this ecology of organisations that make World Book Day happen and support book ownership, support children to be readers. I thought it might be interesting just to have a quick look at how World Book Day is funded and how we were created. So 25 years ago, as Maria said, World Book Day was founded by two of the professional organisations, trade associations in the industry. The Booksellers Association and the Publishers Association got together and founded World Book Day. And our funding still reflects that very close engagement with publishers and booksellers. So through the Booksellers Association, we have an annual sponsorship from the National Book Tokens organisation company, who are owned by the Booksellers Association. Booksellers also buy the £1 books and then give them away to children, which is a massive contribution that they make every year. The Publishers Association has enabled us to have individual funding agreements in place with 35 plus publishers across the industry. So they give at varying levels. But those relationships on both kind of sides of the industry are incredibly important. But World Book Day needs to do more to build a resilient funding profile. As a charity, that's our responsibility. We must do more to make sure that we can address the issues around reading for pleasure and do more to reach our beneficiaries. So it's vital that we earn some more money to do that. And to make sure that there's a broader range of funding, not constantly always relying on our founders, although their help is never going to be not welcome. So now we apply to other charities, to trusts and foundations for money too, and we've been successful there. And we're also beginning to earn money from the brand. So World Book Day is an incredibly popular event in the UK, and other brands like to sell things alongside it. And so we work with them to license the World Book Day brand, making sure that those relationships are always with the charity's aims, ambitions, and beneficiaries front of mind. Just a couple more things to go over. I thought you'd like to see more about the £1 books and £1 tokens and how that mechanism works. So last year, this was our 25th birthday year, around 2 million of the £1 books were given to children, which is an extraordinary reach, an extraordinary number. That's because we gave out 50 million tokens. So they're sent as paper tokens to schools across the country and also in the Republic of Ireland. And they're also given away through partnerships and in magazines. So we try to make sure that children can get hold of the tokens in lots of different ways. And then we saw 2,700, probably more, retailers participating in buying the books and then giving them away to children. One of the things that's really interesting for us is that we can see from the sales of the books how popular World Book Day is. And also what the impact is on the rest of the industry. So even when we take the £1 books out of the equation, out of the data, then we do see the industry sees a 12% uplift in children's book sales every year in the peak World Book Day weeks. And then here, just an overview of what the campaign looks like every year. We have political engagement. We go to Downing Street and sometimes meet the Prime Minister, sometimes meet somebody else. But there's always lots of political engagement. Our social media presence is extraordinary. We're trending on Twitter and all of the other platforms every year. We produce digital events. Last year, 500,000 children engaged with our digital events. The packs are really important because they give education providers a chance to understand how to do World Book Day properly. So to have over 50,000 downloads of that pack is really good. We have great partnerships. We also have an official World Book Day song. And we just get, World Book Day becomes the national conversation on the first Thursday in March every year. And we do measure our media engagement through headlines and pieces gathered. But I think more to the point, everybody's talking about it and everybody has World Book Day as part of our life, part of their lives during that time. So thank you. I'll stop sharing and I'm looking forward to talking.
Thank you. it's amazing. That's the only word that crosses my mind, to be honest. So maybe you will simply add Sarah onto what Cassie said, and then we'll
absolutely
continue talking.
I just have a few slides to share as well. My name is Sarah Bates. I am the Publishing Strategy Director here at Farshore. I'm going to try and actually show the slideshow version of this. I'm hoping you can now see my slides. I haven't got a huge amount to add to Cassie's brilliant presentation. I just wanted to come at it from a slightly different point of view, as I'm aware a lot of you in the audience today will be coming at this as publishers and coming from thinking about World Book Day as an opportunity for you as publishers in your market. So about Farshore quickly, some of you may know our former name, Egmont. We joined HarperCollins 2 years ago and actually changed our name to Farshore in 2021. But through that change, our mission has stayed completely the same. So our mission as a business is to make every child a proud reader. And we do that through having a diverse portfolio of books, from classics from authors and illustrators to household names, to much loved characters and popular brands, even through to things like gaming brands like Minecraft. So any way that we can find to hopefully hook a child into reading could find a home on our portfolio. And there are really two reasons behind having that as our firm mission statement. One is obviously a commercial reason, because if we can encourage more children to enjoy reading, to develop that habit of reading for pleasure, obviously we hope that we can sell more of our lovely books. But equally, there's a second reason which Cassie's already touched on. The impact of being a reader is so important, and it gives children such huge benefits that we really believe that it's an important thing, and that in this instance, what is commercially the right thing to do is also socially the right thing to do for us to build a better society of better citizens for the future as well, if we can get more children reading. So that's a little bit about us, but just to echo really, or build on what Cassie's already been talking about, you heard those impressive stats of sort of 97% engagement and awareness around World Book Day. So from my point of view as a publisher, it's become such a huge moment in the calendar of children's book promotions every year. And for us, obviously, that means it's a really good opportunity for us to get some of our authors out there and seen around World Book Day itself. So we're participating in events up and down the country for World Book Day with a lot of our authors every year. That social media buzz, that digital and PR buzz that Cassie mentioned around the day itself, that's become huge for us too, obviously supporting that on our channels and using that national conversation. I think that's how Cassie put it, using that national conversation about books to showcase some of our other authors and different titles on our list is a really key thing for us to tap into every year. And there has become this real tradition in the UK now around World Book Day for children to dress up as their favourite character when they go into school. Lots of schools participate in this. So it was worth mentioning the dress up side of this here too. I think it's an interesting one to pause and think about, because you can see the two little girls on the slide there. They're wearing Amelia Fang costumes, which is one of our middle grade fiction series. The top one is a homemade Amelia Fang outfit, which looks very impressive. But at the bottom there, you can see that the little girl there with the logo Rubies next to it is actually, that's now a commercially available costume based on the Amelia Fang character that a company like Rubies is now producing and putting on the market themselves. So I think it's just testament to how big World Book Day has become in the UK, that actually other categories are now actually selling and merchandising products off the back of this promotion as well. In terms of market, I always like a graph. Cassie mentioned that there is an uplift in sales, and she's absolutely right. You can see here, this is data from this year to date from Nielsen BookScan data, so EPOS data through the tills. And at the top, you've got volume performance week on week in the market year to date. And at the bottom, there's value performance. And you can see where I've indicated the arrow there, that is World Book Day week in the market. And we see this trend pretty much every year. And you can see by volume that actually it's the second highest peak through the year, second only to our Christmas peak that you can see at the end there. And then at the bottom, I just wanted to put in value as well, because you might be thinking if those World Book Day books, the featured books themselves in the promotion, only retail for £1, that might not have such a big impact in value in the market. But you can see there that there is a definite peak that we see in value as well. So it definitely has a huge impact in terms of sales. And that's why it's become such an important moment for us in terms of book promotion within the children's book year. And I thought I'd show you the bestseller chart from World Book Day week this week. You can see that actually the World Book Day titles, the £1 titles, completely dominate the market in the week of World Book Day. So the top 12 slots are completely taken over by those 12 £1 books featured in the World Book Day promotion. But it's not just about that week as well. We see this then having a halo impact on the weeks ahead. So actually within the children's top 10 chart for the 6 weeks following World Book Day this year, we saw these £1 books featuring in that top 10 for 6 weeks after the day itself. So that's about the impact of those vouchers. Children, perhaps, yes, they engage on the day, but we also see that some children will go into a bookshop later on, use their token later on, or given this is quite an accessible price point, it might be that people go back and say, well, I've read one World Book Day title, perhaps I'll buy another one. It's an affordable price point for parents to go and pick perhaps a second book. And so we definitely see this impact beyond World Book Day itself as well. So it's not just about the day. And then I just wanted to show you as well a selection of, these are the books that actually we have had featured as Farshore in the £1 book selection each year. So we're very lucky enough to be one of the contributing publishers to World Book Day. So we're able to pitch for books every year, and we're lucky to have had a selection each year. And I just wanted to show this to show you the kind of breadth of the kind of books that we have been able to include in the promotion. So it's not just picture books, it's not just fiction. We have had non-fiction featured there with our Matt Lucas book there in 2022. And in 2023, we have another non-fiction title, which is from our picture book author and illustrator, Sophie Henn. And for us, we always think about the selections and the pitch that we want to make for World Book Day in terms of which of our authors we would like to associate with such a great big promotion as World Book Day. So, for example, the Holly Jackson title in the middle there, you may know her trilogy, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which has been a huge bestseller in the UK and I think in several other markets as well. We had this Killjoy title in World Book Day in 2021, which was effectively a prequel for that trilogy of books. So it's a short story talking about the main character before the action for Good Girl's Guide to Murder actually starts. And we published that in March in 2021. And then we went on to published the final book in Holly's trilogy in the August of that year. So we really used World Book Day there as a moment to try and highlight the whole series to readers, make sure they'd got in and had read Good Girl's Guide to Murder from book one, and just reignite all those fans out there before we actually closed the series to great success later in the year. And in terms of marketing, now that World Book Day has become such a big moment in the children's book calendar, I just wanted to mention that we're also using World Book Day now as a vehicle to obviously promote some of our other titles as well. As Cassie mentioned, they're doing a lot of outreach into schools. There's material and mailings going into schools all year round. So even outside of those £1 book titles and the day itself, we're using World Book Day to then help us promote some of our other series, because we know that World Book Day have such great reach into schools. So it's great for our other series like the Mr. Men Discover You series. This is an advert going into some of the mailings going out to schools and nurseries around World Book Day next year. And then also, World Book Day have been working to try and kind of extend their reach beyond just the day itself as well. So World Book Day Book Club is a recent initiative to then have a book each month that is then being highlighted to schools and participants. And we've supported that recently with our Pick a Story title you can see on the slide there. And that's just another opportunity to get a new series, an author out there and in front of children and schools. So it's become such a hugely important vehicle for us, World Book Day. But yes, I hope that's helpful as a bit of an understanding of how we use it as a publisher. So I'm going to stop sharing now and we can start discussing.
Okay, thank you. I'm wondering how the translation went, but we'll see afterwards. Yeah, you were very fast. I hope Taida and Agnieszka managed to translate everything. But for I would have a first proposal for that we go, let's say, a bit back and step by step say exactly what it means. It means someone chooses 10 titles, and this is one of my questions: who chooses the titles and what are the criteria, and who I mean, what is the team? Who is the team who chooses the titles actually? But before we go on, that is one point, right? So there are 10 titles chosen. Then Cassie said, you actually, I mean, between these publishers, these books are being produced and I imagine much more copies than you are able to distribute. So you distribute 2 million copies, but probably the amount produced is bigger. But also the titles are being chosen, the books are being produced. And the third, I think, important part is the tokens, which you said are being sent to kids in 40 million copies. So an amazing amount of tokens. So let us go a bit deeper into these steps, right? So maybe first, how are the books being chosen? Who is the?
Shall I go first?
Yeah.
So, because World Book Day is a charity, it's very important that we're clear that the books are chosen with our charity aims in mind, which means that we have introduced selection guidance for publishers to have a look at. So this guidance is based on the evidence around the kind of books that might encourage, or the kind of reading material that might encourage children to become a reader. So we know that World Book Day is an event that children who love reading take part in, and that's wonderful, and we want to make sure that they always feel involved. We also know that the £1 books do a really special job, which is reaching children who might use them as a taster into a reading habit. So we look at the evidence base around what really does encourage those children into reading. So we ask publishers to think about using illustrations for an age range much older than we might imagine picture books are for, to think about graphic novels, to include non-fiction as well as fiction. Non-fiction can be a really powerful route in for reluctant readers. And then even to think about the format. So within this, we also think about access needs, and the fact that children who may be dyslexic or have other access needs are sometimes considered reluctant readers, but it's about access rather than interest. So the selection guidance goes to the publishers pre their pitch, and we ask them to consider it when they come to us and propose some titles. So then you also ask who chooses, and there is a process to this. Once the publishers have pitched, we gather together a selection panel. The panel is made up of a range of retailers, supermarkets, independent booksellers, high street booksellers, and also experts in reading and literacy from around the industry, librarians, those who work in schools, those from other literacy and reading charities who have librarians and reading expertise in their team. We listen to the publishers, and from there we'll have a short list. We have now introduced a stage where we go and talk to children about the £1 books and their proposals, which has been completely transformative. We say it's the game changer, because it's all very well us as adults who feel we know a lot about the children's publishing world and what's great for children to have a view. But when you put these books in front of children, and primarily they are children who are less likely to have books at home and are less likely to be keen readers, they tell us what they think, and it helps us decide not to some titles. It helps us decide definitely to others. And it also helps us to shape what those books might become, because they aren't books when they come to us. They are essentially commissioned in a way for World Book Day. So we can say, for example, this book would be great, but you pitched it involving plants. Instead, if you pitch it using space, facts and figures, it would be amazing. The children would love that. And that helps us get to a range of books that there are actually 12. And then there are also additional titles that are in the Irish language and the Welsh language. But it helps us get to a great range. The final approval is given by the World Book Day trustees, because as a charity, the trustees guide everything we do. Right.
So it's not, I mean, I think it's important to say that it's not a, let's say, high-end literary, very sophisticated choice, right? And I think it's very positive that it's not. I mean, there are other places where we offer very sophisticated things to kids, but I think that the very important part of this idea is that it's actually good for the kids, but also commercially
absolutely
viable, right?
Yeah. And to say that absolutely, you're right, they are accessible. There could be brands in there, could be well-known authors, but the range is important. So we and quality. So what we're not doing at any stage is compromising on quality for these children. They deserve the best.
Yeah, of course. Right. So going a step further, the part when your book, Sarah, has been chosen, right? Then you produce. How do you define the print run that you have to produce and
So,
how do you do that?
So once our World Book Day title is confirmed, and once World Book Day have announced their kind of lineup of £1 books for the year ahead, it then becomes part of our publishing program like any other book. So our sales team actually then go out and tell retailers about our World Book Day book in the same way that they would do for any other book on our list. And then they start to firm up quantities with their retailers. I should say it's always a much bigger print run than other titles that we have around there. But we do it in much the same way that we would do any other book. So we have that input from our retailers on how many they want to order. That informs our print run decision. And on top of that, we also obviously work closely with the World Book Day team to make sure that we've got any additional copies of those books. So there are other initiatives where we use those £1 Book Day books in different ways. So we'll make sure that we accommodate any of those needs in terms of having any free copies to give away as well as part of that kind of promotional event. And then it comes through our normal sign-off process. So it comes through as a costing for us to sign off the print run in our normal way.
And let's say average or whatever the scale, what is it? Do you publish like 50,000 copies, 100,000 copies?
I think it's probably averages around 100,000 copies.
It will change. So
and it depends.
Sometimes more, sometimes possibly.
Yeah. And about the financials around it, I think this is something that is actually very important. So you have to cover the costs of the print, right?
That's right, yeah.
And then you sell it or you give it away to the distributors?
We sell it, but it's pretty much at cost. So we don't make a profit on any of those titles, and that means the retailers are buying them at a cheaper rate than they would buy other books in order to make sure they remain at £1 for those consumers. So yes, we pretty much print and sell these at cost to us as publishers.
So it's let's say a PR investment or whatever.
Yeah, a marketing PR investment.
We would say a charitable investment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but anyways, publishers do not earn money on the World Book Day books, right? They can earn on the other books that are being sold in the same time, but they do not earn on those books.
That's right.
Such, right? That's something that is probably important to understand. I also need to ask about distributors. So, because I think, Cassie, you said there are nearly 3,000 points of sales offering World Book Day books to children and their parents. So how does that work? Financially also, I mean, do they earn or how do they participate?
So they buy the books from the publishers at Sarah says an very generously cost rate, and then they can sell, but really they're giving the books away to their customers. We try to make sure that as many retailers are taking part as possible, because it's important to us that children can be falling over these books and have as many opportunities as possible to get hold of one or more for themselves. So the fact that they go into the major supermarkets is really important, and also really important that they're there in independent booksellers as well. But it's that breadth, it's the range that's vital. So
your supermarkets like Tesco or other places take part and sell all these books.
And we also, so Sarah mentioned that because we're conscious that there are children who have a very serious economic barrier to taking part in reading, we also make sure now that a number of the books reach children directly where they are. So we target communities where there is very low literacy, very low income levels, high disadvantage, and distribute the books through community groups, through schools and so on, which is a very important area of work for us. But it's harder in a way because it breaks out of that commercial model. So World Book Day needs to find a way to make sure that the publishers aren't continually out of pocket in making a charitable contribution to getting children reading.
And so the distributors, they can actually have a small margin, or they also do not earn anything on the World Book Day?
Well, it's interesting, I'd say, because they may earn nothing because they may give them all away. Some may also sell some of those copies. I genuinely have no idea how many for the pound that is on the site. I'll show you a copy. So
right, so
it's quite an old one. But it has I'm scanned out, but it has a barcode, so you can buy the books for a pound if you choose to.
So the kids that come to bookstores with your token, right? The 40 million tokens that are being sent out to schools and everywhere around the UK. They, in one way or the other, are supposed to reach kids, and effectively you almost have 100% of kids that you actually reach, and then the kid comes to the bookseller, whatever it is, either a bookshop or Tesco or whatever other place, and can get one book for free, right? One kid, one book, or
one kid, one book. Yeah.
And then you're saying that other books can be sold for $1, right? If somebody comes without the token.
Yeah, they can be bought just for £1 if you don't have a token. Yeah,
that's right. And the token can also be used as a discount. So you might want a book that is $6.99 and use the token to bring the cost down to $5.99.
Right. So if you are a child and you don't like any of them, it never happens.
It never happens.
But strictly theoretically, if you don't like any of the books, you can use your token to buy something else a bit cheaper.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So it's, let's say, a mixed setup for the child to I understand, to be as happy as possible around and about what is being proposed, right? Okay. I also have I don't see any questions on the chat. I'm not sure if I'm right, but if I'm not wrong, I don't see any questions. So I'm continuing with my questions. But if anyone wants to ask something, please do.
I'm sorry. There is one question on the chat. I think I can see it. Maybe I can read it.
How I see it right now.
Okay, thank you.
How does the distribution of these books look in libraries? Do you distribute those books in libraries?
So libraries can be one of the venues that receives the books through our more charitable distribution. But also, this depends on the budget that libraries and schools and anyone else who might want to take the £1 books has. So a library can buy the books to give them away. They will only be giving them away. A school can buy the books to give them away too. There are wholesalers, distributors who will sell the books again at the same cost, and they also do not, they don't charge any distribution with these £1 books. So they can get to other places, but the predominant way that the books are out there is through retailers.
Yeah, and it's also, I understand the idea was also to show kids a bookstore, right? I mean, that was probably the initial idea, right? And accustom kids to the fun of buying a book also, except
absolutely true.
Buying their own book,
and having your own book at home, right? So that's probably why I understand the libraries are a secondary, let's say
secondary, but again, I would say there is an ecology to reading. And so particularly for a child, I mean, I can only really use myself as the example, but I know that this is true of many children now. You might have a bookshop nearby. You might be able to go and buy some books occasionally. But in order to develop as a reader, you need a wide range of choice, you need advice, and you need to be able to access the books that you are choosing to read. So libraries are completely vital. That's how I grew up as a reader. It's how my daughter grew up as a reader. It's how children across the country are growing up as readers. It's that ability to have autonomy over your decision. So libraries, whether they're public or in schools, are completely vital to developing a child's reading habit. And we work with libraries in other ways to make sure that they're part of the World Book Day celebrations. But how they use the £1 books is not in the same way as others.
Yeah, so you would probably have activities, author meetings in libraries and other activations, right? A lot of that, right?
Interesting that, so Sarah mentioned the dressing up on World Book Day, and some libraries now are doing make your own World Book Day costume events or costume exchanges. So they're getting involved in really creative ways.
So I also have a question around, I would say the profits for publishers. So Sarah, do you have let's say a special publishing plan around World Book Day? Except for the World Book Day book, do you publish other books with the idea that they will sell at that period?
Yes, we do. And to go back to what Cassie was saying about the selection process, once World Book Day issue their guidance, it's broadly similar each year. We will bring that to our publishing meeting and discuss internally, think about the authors that we as a business are trying to build. If we have a series which is, we're still growing, we might want to think about the books that we put forward for World Book Day obviously we need to meet the selection guidance that World Book Day set, but we're also thinking about strategically which are the authors that we are wanting to grow, where do we have marketing investment behind particular authors or books, and would World Book Day be a good vehicle for that investment? So we're definitely thinking about it strategically in terms of the pitch for the World Book Day £1 books itself. But equally, we do think a lot about other books that we are bringing out during that period. One thing, for example, we perhaps won't look at a book if we've got a big launch coming and we want to get a high chart position for a particular author in a particular book. Actually, we avoid World Book Day month because you can see the bestseller charts will be dominated by £1 books. Right. So we know we might not be able to get that chart position that we want. So there's definitely a strategic conversation internally around the whole of our program, because it's become such an important moment in the calendar.
And domination.
I would in a good way.
Of course, in a best way. I would say it's the dream scenario. I also need to ask about what is the role of the biggest publishers, among which you are, in the financing, and then in what you get from World Book Day, and because I think it's important to see the responsibility of the biggest bit, right? How that works, if you could tell us a bit.
Yeah, so we also make an annual contribution to World Book Day, to their funding. So as Cassie showed in her pie chart earlier on, you could see that publishers were one of the biggest contributors to the funding of the charity.
50% of the...
and that has been since the beginning. And we work through the Publishers Association on that every year, so that actually there is a balance to what different publishers pay as their kind of annual contribution to the charity. And the Publishers Association, as that neutral body that represents all publishers, they're able to then set some guidelines around who will pay the most. So the larger publishers.
Sorry, Sarah. Just to clarify, we're independent from the Publishers Association in that way. So the guidance will come from us. Because it's an important point about the charitable status. Sorry.
Absolutely right. But yeah, it is informed by the level that different publishers can afford to pay. So it is relative to our size within the market, I would say. And then in terms of interaction, that just means that we are partners of World Book Day, but it doesn't give us any huge advantage over other publishers. All publishers can pitch to be part of the World Book Day £1 book selection. So it's very fair and open in that respect.
Right. So it's, the size is, I understand, is the, let's say, more or less definition of who contributes what, which is probably also fair, right?
And yes, so the point is it's not publishers who are dictating what they can pay. It is sort of arbitrated.
And it's a suggestion from World Book Day's point of view, because some publishers pay, I know, pay above the curve, and some publishers pay below the curve, and that's the way it has been. That we're very conscious of the way publishers support with the contribution initially, and then through additional fees for the £1 books and other ways of kind of joining in with World Book Day. So it's not a straightforward model.
Yes, but I understand everybody is happy, more or less. And
more or less.
I can imagine the discussions. So I do have let's say an overall very important question, which is, what are the key success factors for, I would say, both of you, right, for World Book Day? What is like totally key for this to happen and to continue to be such an amazing story for the whole world to envy you, actually.
Shall I have a go?
Yeah.
First, but we have various measures, data that can tell us whether children are saying they're more enthusiastic about reading as a result of World Book Day, and we look really carefully at the data that comes in from a range of sources, and we plot year on year to make sure that it's continually improving. But World Book Day is 25 years old now, and so there are young people out there who either do or don't have children of their own, but who have had the World Book Day experience. And I find it most impactful and wonderful when I'm contacted or have conversations by those people who say that World Book Day really did genuinely play a part in them growing up as a reader. One young man that I met in Parliament last year, he now works for an MP, kind of really made sure that his MP was at our event and introduced us, and we had a conversation, and he said he came from a household where there were no books were not prioritized. He got his first book through World Book Day when he was 14 and had never looked back. And that's really powerful. That's a success measure that I'm prepared to stand by. Yeah,
wonderful.
From my point of view, I think one of the key things that has made World Book Day successful is that partnership approach. The very fact that since the beginning it has been a partnership between publishing industry, different literacy charities, and really importantly for me, the retailers, having them on board from the beginning, I think was key to the success of building World Book Day in the children's calendar. So I'd say that was a really critical factor for success, and I think it's testament to that success that actually I think a number of different retailers still support the charity 25 years on, and it's not just independent booksellers, it is supermarkets as well. So there is that real variety of support from across the retail base in the UK has been really key to the success. And I think the second thing I would just mention is that simplicity of message, I think, has been over its 25-year history, has sort of changed and kind of changed emphasis over time. But I think what Cassie and the team are doing so successfully at World Book Day now is really honing in on that message about it being about reading for pleasure, and really having that at the heart of the campaign to really understand the benefits of reading for pleasure, and therefore have that kind of evidence-based framework around what impact we can have with the outreach of this charity as well. So I'd say that it's those two key things: retail support and a kind of a really simple and clear message to consumers, for me.
Yeah, and the collaboration, I understand.
Yeah,
right? Everyone
absolutely
on board. I mean, you cannot do it, such a thing on your own, right? Even if you're
amazing. It's the magic that holds World Book Day together.
Even if you're HarperCollins or Tesco, I guess Tesco, right? I mean, it has to be everybody. So maybe one last thing about the licensing. That's a bit I would even say surprising, but but wow.
Yeah, it's great.
But vital.
It's so what are the kind of, I don't know, companies that actually approach you guys to ask for the license?
Whether they approach us or we approach them, that's the question.
Okay, whatever.
Because I think it's the in the 25 years that World Book Day has been growing and growing and growing in popularity, it's the brand World Book Day has been used very liberally by many different organizations. So we have the trademark in the words World Book Day, but our steps to protect that, nurture that brand, to make sure that we are the guardians of that brand and the reputation that sits with our charity because of it. It's the early days. So we're maybe 2 years into a program. So we will still find companies using the World Book Day name, not so much the logo, but definitely the name, to sell all sorts of things. Now, dressing up is a favorite because, of course, dressing up is so heavily associated with World Book Day. But, you know, it can be biscuits, or, you know, it can be, you know, shelving for bookshelves, you know. So when we see the brand being used without permission, we will go and ask very nicely for that company to come and work with us as a partner to help reach more children, to encourage more children to become readers. But it's a growing area, and it's partly about brand and reputation, and it's partly about income generation. Yeah. But we will only work with organisations that we feel in some way are prepared to help us with the messaging. So the supermarkets, for example, will pay us a license fee because they're going to sell other things as well as the £1 books. Okay. But they work very closely with us to make sure that the messaging and the excitement of World Book Day is present on those wider promotions. Right. So they sell the, I think, I don't remember the character's name.
Amelia Fang.
Amelia Fang dress.
Yeah. Ruby's, who's the clothing manufacturer, who have a very, very small customer presence, but a very, very big business presence. So they sell to Tesco, they sell to other retailers. They also pay us a license fee.
Okay.
But because they're selling using the words World Book Day, using our brand. But what they will also do is help us with the messaging around why World Book Day exists, and help us generate more reach. So if they come across a retailer who would like to work with them to buy costumes for a World Book Day promotion, but they know they're not involved with World Book Day, the charity, they'll help us with that conversation.
Okay, so
it's a relationship
be
that
your
means
agents.
In a way, I mean, it's but it's more that they are committed to us as a charity.
Of course, The message is very strong. We're almost out of time, but just to nail the costume part, I understand kids started to wear costumes. I mean, to dress up as their characters and go dressed up to bookshops, right? That's how it started.
To school,
and to school. Okay. Yeah. And it grew to be a very important part of World Book Day, if I understand well, right? There is a lot of excitement around the costumes as well.
Sometimes, I like the idea that we might nail the question of costumes in 3 minutes, because it's quite a live discussion every year. Okay. We think the dressing up is exciting and important because it's about fun. Yeah, it's about children being able to celebrate their reading identities and, you know, share tips with each other. But more importantly, it creates this special moment around reading. But there are plenty of children who don't like dressing up. There are plenty of families who can't afford the materials or a bought costume. And what's really important is that World Book Day is inclusive. Everybody can feel they can take part. So we're very careful to make sure that there are a lot of options for taking part that aren't dressing up. Okay. We don't want to stop it, but we do want to make sure that people can take part, even if they think that's not for them.
It's always a question of balance, isn't it? I think, and then just making sure that the key message is about the reading and getting back to the pages of the book. But I think the dress up is a fun way to celebrate World Book Day for many parents and families, and increasingly, obviously, so visual. That idea of dressing up is the thing that we do see on kind of social media channels, as well as parents share what their son or daughter is dressed up as each year going into school as well on World Book Day. So it is part of the buzz, definitely.
So it goes viral. You could have dresses to be rented, or how do you say, borrowed in libraries.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's an idea, not to pay for them. Okay, I think we have to finish right now. I'm very, very grateful to both of you for telling us all the details and different aspects in such a short time, and having prepared the images for everybody to see. Also,
thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. It's been very interesting.
And see you hopefully somewhere.
I hope so too.
And have a great World Book Day 23.
Thank you.
Coming
Thank you.
soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.